Welcome back to the Good Leader Podcast. I'm your host, John Martinez. I am with my co-host, Dr. Dave motherfucking Miller.
Yeah,
And
so keep your mothers locked up when I'm in the neighborhood.
yeah, you heard him. And Miguel, our producer. And today our topic's gonna be the strength that destroys you. Miguel, go ahead and put the intro right there. So the reason I brought up this topic because on Sunday I was telling you, Dave, about with Steve, we're supposed to go on the Sons of Thunder and do like be a guest for their podcast, and that was one of the topics they wanted to talk about was kind of like Samson. So it kind of made me think about like strength stuff. So I was like looking into it more because I know the story of Samson, but I was kind of refreshing myself on it because I think they do it kind of like live. So I think they take live questions, and you always have these dudes that with the Bible college and they're over there like, let me question everything about what you're saying. So I was talking about strength, without discipline, it is self-destruction. And if people's strength can make them untouchable. And I think that's kind of a topic me and you kind of always do touch on, the difference between like working out strength and actually being strong. They're not the same thing, but people sometimes think they're the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, hey, I work out.
So one of the things I'll point out in the gyms, they use some people who got like show muscle, not go muscle.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that was kind of like one of the topics I want to talk about that. And, with strength, can it make you believe you're untouchable? Success, can that cause you to ignore warning signs? And that power convince you that rules don't apply to you? And the stronger a man becomes, the more discipline he requires.
What was that line in that Spider-Man movie? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that really does ring true. I mean, when you do have, that strength, I mean, if you're not careful on how you focus it, you can always just be directed in the wrong places.
Have you ever seen any talented person destroy themselves that you knew or that you watched or anything? I mean, I think we all have one now. Basically, you can go on YouTube.
I mean, you could probably cite like anyone of like the tons of like professional wrestlers. Like when I grew up, they got famous. They got jacked, on freaking on the gear and all that sort of stuff. And then the next thing you know, they're all having like heart attacks and freaking just falling off, and then they're just wrecks.
Yeah, and I think you kind of see that now, and it's not to stick with the gym thing, but I think you see that now with a lot of the kids. I will always kind of talk about like some of them, like, yeah, we know you're taking steroids. Like it's not a secret, right? It's like, and it's like kind of going down that road where it's like, are you eventually going to self-destruct because you're already kind of starting off on the wrong foot? Like you're not older, you don't need testosterone. You know what I mean? You're just trying to now compete with, I don't know what it is yourself or what they're watching or what's driving them. And eventually at some point they're going to, destroy themselves. And because some stuff like that eventually comes to a head, you know what I mean, for them.
Well, a lot of times, it's like those people, it's like they're trying to sell like a system, and so it's like, you get these like, 20, 23-year-old kids, they're now influencers on Instagram or whatever, they're jacked, like whatever, it's like, but it's like they hadn't, ultimately, I mean, they took shortcuts, to like just explode to like, abnormal proportions, whatever. It's like, so they're selling a system when it's like the real strength comes in living a system. And so it's like, when you look at like, say maybe like, the 40 plus guys, who've been consistent every day, they may not be, Hulk jacked
monsters,
but the thing is they got solid strength. They're very capable, and they know how to use it properly.
Yeah. I think a lot of the point with that is it's not any like, it's like, we all know where like working out takes discipline, eating right takes discipline. I think with some of those guys, and I think the mentality, I think of a lot of maybe kids or younger people this generation seems like, well, I rather make the sacrifice now because I just want to get what I want now, not thinking of the long term. Like they're not really thinking down the road. You know what I mean? That's why I'm like, why? Because I don't ever remember thinking in my 20s like, yeah, I want to take steroids, or that wasn't even like a thought or something that came up. I think that's only something recently, like you said, with gym influencers and things like that. And then, at the same time, most of them are lying to you because they're telling you, oh, how do you get big like that? Well, I take my, my custom pre-workout and I eat rice and chicken, and this is how I get in. You're like, nah, that's not.
But there's like, all these dudes, the things, they may have this like product or this like, whatever program that they're trying to sell, but it's like they really don't have any kind of real world, applicable knowledge to what sustainability is.
Yeah.
It's like all they've learned is just in a short window of time, and all they've accomplished is the same period, and it's just, and you end up finding out that kind of shit isn't sustainable.
Yeah.
Whereas like, strength, you want to be able to last.
Oh yeah, and I think definitely that's why you see it with a lot of the strength influencer or fitness influencers. To me, I feel like they'll jump on any fad that's on the way. You know what I mean? If they'll go from working out to like, vlogs to doing like, hey, we're challenges. It's like whatever, because there's no, like you said, there's no real substance behind what they're doing. So they're the merit of what they're actually selling or trying to push. It's kind of based off popularity more than it is of like, this is actual gonna work. Because I think when stuff works, it's not always gonna be flashy. It's not gonna always be like entertaining. It's gonna be like, sleep right. You need to eat good, work out. Don't drink, don't smoke. Not like, that doesn't sound as fun as like, hey, make a jackass of yourself in front of the camera. And do things like that. It's not gonna be that. It's not gonna come off that in a way that maybe they deem as appealing.
And the thing is they may not be at the point, to where maybe, what they're practicing, is collapsed on them yet. But then at that, it also becomes a practice of, you're leading other people down to the same, the same brick wall.
Yeah.
Just a bunch of lemmings following you off the cliff.
Yeah.
So it's like, therein lies like the responsibility. I mean, it's like it's not true strength if you're going to be a source of just mass destruction.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like you said. Yeah, I like this point. They're kind of leading other people down that path, and like, and also, and it's just again, it's like that physical strength again doesn't equate to like mental strength. And, across the board, like, yeah, you're physically strong, but how do you, normally, how are you gonna react when things don't go your way?
Yeah.
And this is, I think me and you have talked about this. Like, the gym setting is a nice setting. You know what I mean? It's indoors. Most time it's air conditioning, it's cushioned exercise machines. This is not like you're working out in some dungeon. You know what I mean? Like slaying dragons for or monsters for your food, and you're just a beat. You know what I mean? That's, right. I know that's also people want to do it, but it's like, and I love the gym, but that's not what it is.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, even something like, Conan the Barbarian is actually a really, impractical portrayal of, what a barbarian actually would be.
Yeah.
So it's like, So yeah, they didn't have that great at gyms back then.
Yeah.
So say where did you get that?
Pushing a grinding wheel or whatever.
Exactly.
Can your greatest gift become your greatest weakness? What's the greatest gift do you think God has given you, and what you think that can become your greatest weakness?
That's a good one. I mean, whatever your gift you have, I mean, when it becomes like a turning point where it feeds your ego more than your sense of duty, then you're serving, basically.
Yeah,
it's a form of idolatry.
Yeah.
You're serving the wrong purpose. You're worshiping the wrong thing.
Yeah.
At that point, I try to, respect my strengths, as well as my weaknesses. Although I got one thing is I constantly tell people, that I've always like put on a resume or something like that. It's like, my greatest weakness is I don't know everything. However, my greatest strength is I can learn anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is like I try to find that balance,
Yeah, there's definitely, and I think a lot of people we can lose track, because it's like, I think the thing that kind of can breed that is like success, right? If you're, if you maybe are, not conducting yourself in a way where you step on people, but it brings you success at your job, it kind of validates, well, I had to step on them and this brings me success. So now you start doing that, you know what I mean? Or like,
right.
Yeah, it kind of fuels your like, oh, well, I did this and it worked. You know what I mean? And it's just like you're talking about for the or no, the other guy brought it up for the UFC thing about the he was talking about the Michelle Obama comment.
Right. Yeah.
But that's kind of that's the good and the bad side, right? Between stuff like that, because you have it where in one aspect it has catapulted certain like fighters to greater stardom, right? Because they say something that's like controversial or funny or badass, whatever it may be. But then it's like, then some people will be like, but then sometimes that can blow up in your face, and you're like, oh, you shouldn't have said that shit. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. So when it comes to personal gain by way of bad means,
Yeah.
that can always be seductive and can, just kind of lead you into making that a practice.
Yeah.
Which then alienates everybody around you from you.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, out come the pitchforks and the torches.
Yeah.
And
that seems to be a thing. You see a lot of guys where sometimes they start off making like very like valid points.
Yeah.
And like, oh yeah, everyone kind of, and then at some point people start like, that's now you're kind of going a little bit deeper. But I think it's like you said, because they're getting that initial validation, but they can't stop there. It's almost like, no, I need to keep, going farther down this, this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And now they're like, then they're so deep into it that they almost like, it seems like they can't come back. And I think that's that's happening with a lot of these, I mentioned the influencers because you see them kind of just do it in real time. Like there's even that guy, what's his name? That he's in jail right now, Chud the Builder, where he was going around kind of like starting fights, kind of being like super racist with people. And it's like, okay, I get the point you're trying to make. You're kind of making this kind of like you're like, hey, there's a double standard, and you're kind of standing up, like because there's always a lot of hate towards white people and things like that. And I get that. And it's like, but now you're going around purposely trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Antagonizing people. And then this kind of all happens and it blows up in your face. And it's like, your whole message is lost now. Anyways, you know what I mean?
That's a good kind of like a story of caution. I mean, because so beware of like a cult following.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's like kind of built off of like maybe like a small gimmick at a time.
Yeah.
And you say, oh well, this is the way to go because now I'm getting attention for it. And you try to build off that, that can always just blow up in your face.
And I also think you got to be careful with friends around you that are I'm gonna say friends in quotes, right? I think your friends aren't going to be cheering for your downfall. You know what I mean? Like, I think if they're your friends, they may be telling you like, hey, you need to stop doing that shit. You know what I mean? Or you're doing too much right now. I think they start listening to the other people who are like, oh yeah, bro, that's cool. That's cool. Or look at all the attention you're getting. You know what I mean? Instead of telling you to stop.
Yeah.
And that's where I think they get addicted to like that, because I think it's way easier because like it goes back to the validation part, because now you're hearing everyone saying, oh man, look at all the attention you're getting. You know what I mean? So they're just like, okay, I must be doing something right.
There's another factor to it too, in today's world with the social media and stuff like that. I mean, like a detachment from like, the people who, support you or your followers, add likes to your post, stuff like that. It's like you're not dealing with them, on a personal level on a day-to-day basis. It's such a degree of separation that, you're getting all this, kind of, this fandom, I guess.
Yeah, you can.
But they don't ever really experience any part of you outside of like these little clips.
Yes.
And so it's like you don't get the right kind of feedback from that sort of following.
Yeah, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Like you can't let it. It's like that poem from Rudy Kipling. It's like you gotta walk with kings and walk with the humble man and still be like the same person. Yeah. So you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Right. Like they don't. Like you agree on certain things, but you're not going to agree on everything. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that you don't know them like on a day-to-day basis type of thing. It's kind of just having, I guess, commonalities, but not also letting that like get to your head where it's like, oh, you know who I am?
Yeah. Well, you're out there doing some kind of, performance or shtick or something like that, and you get like a bunch of likes or like laughs or like whatever. So you got to kind of look at that and it's goes like, let's just assume that half of these people are total fucking retards. They're just like scrolling through. Oh, that's hilarious. But so it's like, it's a real kind of twisted form of reality, that people can end up finding themselves in, which skews their perception of what they're actually doing.
Well, yeah, it's like I mean, one of the things I notice, and it's like I see it because it's crazy. It's like where I mean, it could be either guys or girls, right? Because it could be like the guys that are, they're saying look maxing and things like that, and then you see other things where you see girls where they're fitness thing, but their whole personality is. It's weird to me. It's like your whole personality and your platform is based off your ass.
Yeah,
like that's your entire following. And it's like it's like you're not even leading with your actual personality or your face. It's all based off of your ass. Like you're literally, and so it's kind of crazy when you think about that. But you're like, I guess. But I even see that it could seem like that's kind of coming to an end, or at least dwindling, because it's now become so there's so much of it. There's so many girl influencers like that it's like they're a dime a dozen. You know what I mean? There's no, it's not like, oh, before, like, oh yeah, look at this, like this.
Yeah, now it's just the same old.
It's the same old. Yeah, and I don't think maybe they understand that about guys. I mean, yeah, there's gonna be a certain like percentage of guys that are just gonna follow you, and because they're like that. But for the
good caption is shoulder and arms day, and it's just
their ass.
It's like, great, all right.
So it's kind of like they have to be, and that's where you have to be kind of realistic, I guess. When what they don't probably care. It's like, whatever. I think
clickbait.
Yeah,
I
think when anyone's like that, they don't really care what kind of attention they get, as long as it's attention. You know what I mean? Which is kind of which is a drug in itself. You know what I mean? That's where you see a lot of them where they're like, I saw this one guy where he was talking about that. He said, he was like a Twitch streamer, younger kid. So he said I was making at one point 150,000 a month, and then he said 100,000 a month, and then he said 20,000 a month, 10,000 a month, then 2,000 a month. But he was basing the money that he was spending off the original high amount. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not realizing like one day, like, hey, this fucking roller coaster is gonna come to an end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And managing that money, in a better way.
Yeah.
And just kind of was blowing it. You know what I mean? Because he just assumed like, it's like, yeah, everyone, like, people go to the circus because they want to see clowns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but at some point they're like, oh, okay, circus is over, and then they leave you, and then those are those people that end up being like, now what am I? You know what I mean? Right, like wipe your clown face off.
Right.
Circus is over.
Take that baby red nose off.
Character must be stronger than your capability. What do you what would people trust you without your accomplishments? Do you think people would act I think that, like, I can see where that's kind of I guess a good, not say a good or a bad thing, but I guess people kind of do look at your experience about what you talk about or what you do, because I know that I sometimes do. If someone's like, not like, if someone hasn't, I don't know, if someone who has a different upbringing, you want to know if they kind of can at least relate to what you've been through, type of thing.
So, yeah, I mean, again, it comes back to what's your purpose? What do you serve? In life. For me, I mean, over the years, I really kind of developed it as something where it's like my integrity means more than anything. And I got that put to the test when I was in prison, because I think, like I told you, it's like I wasn't playing anybody's game when I went there.
Yeah,
I just kind of like in essence, kind of just dropped to my knees as I go through. Look, I'm just going to stand for myself.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not asking you for anything. Yeah. But just be there. Just let me be me in the face of whatever gauntlet I got to go through.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, it's not that it was easy.
Yeah.
It was one of the hardest things I ever had to do.
Yeah.
And I paid for it, and I made other people pay for it too.
Yeah.
So it's like I gave as good as I got.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in the end, coming out with that, I think that was when I was at at peace with myself the most in my entire life.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I didn't succumb to nothing, even with everything to lose.
Yeah, because you end up having to stand on, like, you get to see what you're actually made of. You know what I mean? And I think that sometimes when I tell people about what I'm kind of saying, like, external confidence versus internal, like, internal confidence to me comes from, like, proving it to yourself, like, you are who you say you are. And that only comes usually in the face of adversity or hard things. Where, like, and like you said, being able to, good or bad, you come out of a situation and be like, okay, I did that shit. You know what I mean? And that's where, and you prove it to yourself. And I think that makes you different, where external confidence comes from just people telling you, oh, this is what I think you are. And a lot of people can't live up to that because they haven't been in those situations.
That's where you do truly find out who you really are.
Yeah.
It's like when you actually are, facing a situation where you have everything to lose.
Yeah.
And it's if what you proclaim to stand for, you can stand for through all that.
Yeah.
I don't care what your convictions are, but there is something to be said that it's like if you have convictions that you will die for,
yeah,
then they truly are convictions.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily take that away from a man.
Yeah.
You disagree with maybe what some of the things he's got convictions on there, but you got to give him respect for, for having that level of commitment.
Well, that's one of the things I kind of talk about sometimes when it comes to like people in their, sometimes like, when it comes to like, war or with, history and people with different religions. My whole thing sometimes with that is like, you can't beat the religion out of people. Yeah. Like, if someone grew up, Christian or Catholic or they Islam, like, and that's just the way they think. If they go to a different way of thinking, it's got to come out of their own free will.
Yes.
Like, we can't make anyone believe what we want them to believe. Like, you're not gonna there's not gonna be a conversion that doesn't come with some level of violence. You're not gonna just like make people convert, and that's where sometimes people don't understand about. Sometimes, like, I'm gonna say with war and things like that, where they think, hey, we're gonna like. We just be peaceful with them? Like, well, you can't coexist with people that want you to convert. That's where people don't understand. You can coexist with people that think that you're free to believe what you want and they could believe what they want, but a lot of times certain religious elements don't align with that. You know what I mean?
However, have you noticed that, say if you say Christianity in particular, there may be like a few, that you could probably count on like one hand that don't punish apostasy.
Yeah.
So it's like you could leave Christianity, nobody's going to stone you to fucking death.
Yeah.
So you might get that trying to leave Islam, or you're going to get some kind of harassment trying to leave Scientology for fuck's sake. It's like you actually get punished.
Yeah, and I think
for trying to leave a religion.
Yeah.
Well, that's not a faith anymore.
Yeah, it's like they're trying to make you. It's like and I think that comes from because I think most Christianity it's more based off free will. Like, you can come willingly and leave willingly. It's just more off of you than it is off of the actual. And I think that's what made it different from a lot of other different religions, because they almost more like traditions, and like you said, almost like they're going to be forced upon you, like type of thing. And that's why you get a lot of you get extremism on both sides of that, because it's like you either people that hate it because they don't want to be part of it and they never wanted to be part of it,
right.
Or you get people that feel like anyone who's not part of it, they hate other people that are not part. And I think that's never a good place to be.
Like the path of least resistance is just to stick with it, so I don't fucking feel like heat.
But it's almost like they're scared. What I mean? They're too scared to. And I think that's where and I think that's why when people become like because I've seen a lot of people over time come from like more like Catholic to Christian, and I think that's what it was, because I think to me sometimes Catholic, even growing up Catholic, I saw it more like traditional, where Christian was based off more what do you believe in and what do you want to listen. You know what I mean? Like it comes off more like the pastor and the church that you're going to, and something that resonates more with you rather than like just be this way.
Well, so being actually raised Catholic, it's like I do know that Catholic. I mean, even though its foundation is Christianity, I mean, it
is different.
The body of it is actually more of an institution than a religion, because it's got its own dogmas and stuff like that. It's just kind of like peripheral maybe to Christianity, but really don't have anything to do with Christianity. Where Christianity itself, I mean, it's really kind of it's like it's an individual journey. It's like everybody's path to God, is their own.
Yeah.
God will speak to you in a way that you understand.
Yeah.
Not the way somebody else is going to make you understand.
Yeah.
So it's so it is an individual path to faith.
Yeah.
However, you can find a unity in it.
Well,
when you know that, and that's a strength, and that's kind of the thing that kind of makes it different from a cult, whereas like I will go back to like your religions that will do punish apostasy. That's more cult-like behavior than it is a religious behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I agree with that because I always say, I always tell people, growing up Catholic for most of my life until I was probably like in junior high ish, I think would say, like I couldn't really tell you any particular like Bible verse or anything that I learned. I always tell people I didn't really learn the Bible from that. I learned it more from my grandma and like her Sunday school stuff and watching like she'd make us always watch like this show called Superbook, and it's all about all these Bible stories. But I don't ever remember going to church or as far as Catholic church and being like, oh wow, that was real moving. Like we're now going into a lot of different having gone to different church, even the initial church that I went back to with my parents before I went to where I started going in Simi Valley, which is called separate church. Like the initial church I went to was called I'm forgetting the name right now. No, it's not reading. It's Calvary. uh they're, I would say, they're a little bit older crowd because my parents had went there, but their message was still good. That got me back into going to church. You know what I mean? Got me kind of like and down that way because yeah, it's like the more you can still take away things, from what they're saying and kind of and be like, oh yeah, and I can understand that. That's where it becomes like you have to kind of find what actually talks to you rather than am I just coming because because what did they say, Easter, like what is it, holidays, and it's like
right,
some Sundays you're going to when you're Catholic.
And so so this does kind of like kind of wrap in is where this there's a fundamental understanding of where your strikes come from and the purpose for them, and it's not, I mean, your strikes are granted to you to be of service somehow, they're not, it's not for your personal gain. I mean, sure, some of that may be a byproduct, if you're successful in a field or something like that. So, but if personal gain is just your purpose, that's where it becomes corrupting. Yeah. And that's where it can become destructive, not only to those around you, but to yourself.
Yeah, because they're just doing it for everything. Like, what can I get out of this? Like, if it's not beneficial, and I get what you're saying. Like, there's more strength in helping other people and then just service to yourself. Like, obviously, you got to be able to take care of yourself. You want to live in a nice house and need food and water and all the stuff that come along with that. But like, ultimately, more strength comes from actually helping other people and a service to other people.
Yeah.
Do you think a man's character must be able to carry the weight of all his gifts?
Yes.
What it makes me think of? Tiger Woods. I don't know why, because I always think of like, you kind of see him like always like known for golfing. His dad taught him, and then it's like,
but now driving under the influence of painkillers.
Well, yeah, you see it because I think initially, like when he kind of the whole thing happened with him and his wife, or like whatever, okay, like he is cheating on her, doing whatever he was doing. He is like people were judging him for that, and I think that the next time when he got in, I think it was another accident, right? Like I think people were even forgiving of that, but this last time you kind of saw a different, not like a huge backlash. It's not like he's all famous like he was before,
right?
But you definitely, I don't think it was that. It was a kind of like, again, like, you have all this talent, but you're still doing stupid shit, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, why do you need you know what I mean? They're like, and it's also like, what do you need painkiller? How many injuries can you sustain golfing? Like, do you really? Or it must be boredom, almost. Like, you almost wonder, like.
At that, also, I mean, you do have to take into consideration sometimes. I mean, when you hit certain, levels of success in certain fields or whatever, you do enter basically a different world.
Yeah.
And as you hit some of these different levels, either monetary or fame or something like that, you start like, getting pulled into the circles and stuff like of just like of bunch of sycophantic, motherfuckers who just want a piece of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
For whatever, I can milk this guy for something.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different life to live.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you got to be careful going down that path. And that's where like your integrity actually comes in, and being able to know your enemy,
Well, that's what talks about, like a lot of those, like some of the celebrities they talked about, like I was listening, like what's his name, Charlie Murphy, talking about Eddie Murphy, and he always talked about how like Eddie Murphy didn't do drugs, didn't drink, and basically would kind of go to parties but not really hang around. It's almost like you have to be able to say, hey, I'm here to show face, but you ain't kicking it, you ain't hanging around like they're hanging around, type of thing. But a lot of people, it's like, I think that comes back to a lot of things where, to me, it's almost like if you never got girls and all of a sudden you're getting girls and now you're like, I don't know how to act, you know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
you start indulging in everything and you just don't know how to stop yourself because now this is an attention or level of that you've never had, where
Yeah.
if you have a little bit of life experience, you kind of learn to like kind of say like, this is not, this is not the way it's always gonna be. It's not new to you, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Makes it easy to become addictive.
You have any questions or anything, Miguel? Any feedback?
You guys mentioned something about like if it didn't go through your experience, would people trust you? Something along those lines. Was that it?
People trust you?
Like would people have like I don't know, like you said something along the lines like if you didn't have the experience you had, would people still believe?
Oh yeah, what people said, you don't have like some like credible experience behind like if I never was in law enforcement and I talked about being a cop with people, they'd be like, it kind of comes with a grain of salt because I know how I listen to it. I kind of listen to it and sometimes I'll be like, oh, they have a point, or sometimes I'll be like, they don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
I guess my question there is like, for those who are young and inexperienced, how do they get experience without putting themselves in life and death situations?
That's actually a very good question. I think the thing is, ultimately everybody just got to live their own life. However, you can actually plant a seed that'll guide somebody through certain situations if you can actually relate experience from actually what you've lived. I mean, real life experience. I mean, you get like a lot of like self-proclaimed gurus and stuff like that who will tell you all sorts of stuff, and then it's like, well, how is this a pleasure? Well, I don't know. I didn't go through anything like that. I'm just telling you that is, well, now I'm not even going to listen to you because you don't have, anything to back it up with. You just read it out of a book and now you're regurgitating it to me. However, when you actually do have an experience that you can draw from, where you can relate to somebody and put it in a context that they can understand, and it brings a different impact because you actually do bring an emphasis with something like that because it means something to you and people can latch on to that a lot easier.
Also, I think you have to have like, for some people, it's not that they have to have like a life and death experience, but I think when you're younger, people can kind of tell you, even guys with experience can tell you what you should or shouldn't do, but really sometimes they're still not going to listen. Like, and actually there was a kid that I knew that he wanted to be a Navy SEAL, and I was like, why do you want to be a Navy SEAL? And he was just like, oh, I watch podcasts or movies, the movies. And I told him, I said, bro, let me explain to you that. I said, if you go to the Army, and I said, or the Marines, I said, there's a lot of specialty units you can go to that you're not going to have to be like the Navy SEAL pipeline, where if you go to the Navy and wash out and all of a sudden you're a fucking bud stud and you're fucking scraping barnacles on the side of a fucking, fleet carrier. And I said, I said, anyone that's been in the military, you kind of have to look at, what are you trying to do? And so I told him, I said, you can go into the Army, you can join infantry, you can become a ranger, you can join special forces. There's a lot of different pipelines for you that would be better and offer you more chance of better success. But you could tell he was just stuck in like, I want to be a Navy SEAL, you know what I mean? And so sometimes, but they got to learn the way they got to learn, you know what I mean? So all you can do is give them, advice and tell them, and hopefully, they listen. But sometimes when you're young, you're just dumb. You're not going to listen. So
Those people just have like a concept of something like a Navy SEAL from what they've seen in like the movies. They don't realize that most of the SEALs out there aren't like operators, fighting like all this covert combat everywhere. So
I mean, it's the same thing like with we're talking about with the gym stuff. With the kids, we can tell them like but they've kind of created their own culture where they could tell to them the gym is hard. To the gym, but they haven't lived any life. They're still living at their parents' house. You know what I mean? Their mom's still paying their bills. So it's kind of like where they don't realize like this is not hard. Like what's going to be hard is when you move out of your parents' house, got to pay your own bills, work your job. If you get married or have kids or do whatever, and then now go to the gym. Now tell me you're locked in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's going to be hard. But a lot of them, and to them, I think people create their own version of what they think is hard. And so that's why people, will have different versions of what they think is like a hard life, you know what I mean?
And that really does kind of depend on where they're at in life and the things that they have gone through.
Yeah. So I guess the thing I'm getting from you guys is first define what is it you want, and then just go find that example.
Yeah.
And try to learn from it.
Yeah.
But because if it comes from TV or TikTok or social media, you're already setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah,
So that's a good point. I mean, you're gonna go to like the guy freaking living in a box behind a grocery store, you know, to find out how to make $1 million. You know, no, you know, that's not a practical way of gaining knowledge.
Yeah, and a lot of it, there's a one guy I saw, it was like a commercial for like, it was like one of those, it was like an old, I think Army, Marines, or some commercial, and it showed them they're all camouflage and they're all like, you can't see them. And then one guy, he kind of said, he said like in a comment was like, what they're not telling you is like, it's rainy, it's cold, you're hungry, you're fucking miserable, you've been out there for like, which is true, but you can't feel that through the image, you know what I mean? Yeah, you're just seeing the cool part of it. Oh, that looks cool. You know, you're not seeing all the work that goes behind it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that does come with the experience. It's like that's why like when I tell guys about the cop thing, it's like you'll see the cool parts of it. Like even things that I show are the cool parts of it, right? But I said there's a lot of parts that you're not gonna see. You're not gonna see reports. You're not gonna see, people just don't like you for no reason. You're not gonna see the politics in your own department. You're not gonna see all the things behind the scene. And those are experiences that you could tell people they're there, but until they go through them themselves, what I found is people don't seem to, not that they don't care, but until they go through it themselves, and then when they feel it, they're like, fuck, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk had something like a piece of advice that kind of answers this too, is like, if you're unsure of what your future holds or you want to learn from other people, go to a senior center and just talk to them for an hour.
Yeah.
Talk to them for a whole day, and they'll tell you their regrets, their what they should have done, what they shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And I guess that's what it pretty much says, like, find those people that have done it. Don't look at those like false idols on his.
Oh yeah, that's social media is not the place.
Somebody who's actually lived life, yeah.
Okay, and then just wrap it up. Our shout outs always to the Gain Station Gym, EZF Media, the Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast, the Sons of Thunder, and the Anti-Hero podcast. We'll do our little thing with them on Sunday, so that'll be cool. And do you have anything going on at the gym, Dave, that you want to share with any of the members?
Not currently right now.
Come to the gym, lift weights.
It's summertime, man. So
Wear deodorant.
So yeah, wear deodorant.
Thank you for
Yeah. Watch out for the crickets.
And make sure you check us out. Follow us at the Good Leader Podcast on all major streaming platforms. Join the violent community. And we'll share this episode with somebody who needs it. And then we'll keep going from there. And you have anything, Miguel?
Quite cool.